Okay. I know that this isn't technically English related and more like life skill behavior related, but what I'm finding is that many of my students don't know how to research a topic, don't know how to work through the concept. And so you get to a text analysis and you get to a piece of writing and you're like, what do I do now? So I've got this topic, I've got this question, but what now? What is the process I should follow? So I'm going to give you a bit of a question that I want you to consider. And I want you to take maybe 5 to 10 minutes to write down what you do. Let's do 5 minutes. When you are told that you need to write an analysis, what is your process? Write every step of your process and then share it for me in the forum. Whoever is the first one to finish, just create the forum topic. Let's take a look at what you said. So, Sydney, you said do a quick scan through the text, try to identify good things to analyze. And I think that's really great. Figure out the gasp for the text that you must consider. Annotate text, find an equal amount, linguistic devices and denotational or rhetorical devices. Formulate topic sentence whole text. So that's actually called your thesis statement that you're going to formulate, because your topic sentence is for your single paragraph. And I think at a later stage, we really need to do another session on creating a thesis statement for creating a thesis statement for a text analysis. Right? I think that's one that takes a lot of practice. Now, so you build out your introductory paragraph because your introductory paragraph basically defines the direction of your piece. So when we have a text analysis and it says, okay, analyze language, form, and structure, great. There's lots to analyze. There are many, many things. This is part of the reason I personally now, I found it difficult a few years ago for a different reason, but today I find text analysis really difficult because I see so many different things that I could analyze. And that is currently my biggest challenge. Because I have so much prior knowledge of things that could be analyzed, I analyze literally everything. And so I get overwhelmed by the sheer quantity of things I could analyze. And then I end up writing like 4,000 words, which is just unrealistic, realistically. Okay, so we need to formulate our topic sentence for the whole text. We need to build out our introductory paragraph. And you say this helps to keep the text focused, and I think that's great. Then we write out our text analysis. So we try to stick to a Peel method. So points, example, point, evidence, explain, link. And then we embed our quotes correctly. So instead of saying, it says, colon, and then saying the thing, and then it's where it breaks up the sentence, embedding the quotes is actually making them part of the sentence. This helps guide the reader through your thought processes. Using discourse markers also helps, and that's great. So then we end off with a conclusion that brings together your whole argument, and you try to refer back to the introductory paragraph. I presume that's what it's going to be. Then let's look at what OT says. I first search with what the subject is, usually with the internet, and read as much as I can and watch as many videos as I can from as many different sources while taking notes after fact-checking everything. Is this answering the question of what to do when you're faced with analyzing a text, OT? Can you quickly write a thing for specifically to do with English? Okay. And then Inika, read through the question again to make sure I fully know what's being asked to do. Make notes of possible things to mention as I read through the text again. Okay, create a thesis statement. I think that's what it's called. Write my analysis, analyzing the text paragraph by paragraph. Okay, so you guys have very different workflows here. And a strength that I think both of you have is this thesis statement. But if you're going to analyze paragraph by paragraph, what's going to happen is you're going to have a repetition, because your ideas are not necessarily linked. I think I've spoken about this before, right? Okay, so since your ideas aren't necessarily linked, if you do it paragraph by paragraph, you're not going to be able to get the higher level marks, because you're going to, let's say they talk about a bee in the first paragraph. Let's say they then talk about honey in the second paragraph. Then in the third paragraph, they talk about a caretaker. Okay. In the fourth paragraph, they talk about they mention being high up from the ground. Okay. They just make like throwaway statements. If you're doing paragraph by paragraph, you might not notice that this is an extended thing that is going through the whole text. And if you're doing paragraph by paragraph, you're not going to be able to connect those thoughts. And that is very much where we're getting our structural marks from. That's where we're this building up of understanding, building up of knowledge. Does that make sense? Let's look at a different process in our life. Okay? Make it real for a moment. When you want to have dinner, what is your process for having dinner? You don't have to cook the dinner. But do you have like a process for what happens every time you have dinner? What is the process? Okay, so you walk out your room, you close your laptop, walk out your room, take your plate, give it to your mom dishes up for you, you take your plate, you go sit down. Okay, and you eat your dinner. After dinner, what do you do then? Take it to the kitchen, you collect everyone else's plates, you do the dishes. So there is a pre-process, a during process, and a post-process. Okay? So let's look at that. If we take this pattern of pre, post, and pre, during, and post. So the things that we should do before we have our text analysis. I'm going to say something wild, but our first thing to do is read the text as if it was written for us. Okay, so our first step is read the paragraph, read the passage as if it was written for us. And the reason we do this is because we cannot analyze something that we have not experienced. And if you are coming to a text purely from an academic perspective, you're going to miss some aspects of it. Kind of like when we were looking at the text of the guy eating children. Did you feel at all like offended or like shocked? Yes, you did. I gave a very, very long text so that you couldn't just skim it and do it. You had to actually read the text. Okay? And so my first suggestion is read the text. Now your text will be about 900 to 1,500 words, right? Okay. So let's see, how long does that take to read? Normal reading speed is 300 words a minute. In an exam pressure situation, maybe you're reading 200 words a minute. Okay? So that's going to take you about 5 minutes to read. Okay? And I would suggest at this point, and this is something I struggle with because I make notes from the very beginning. And I actually have gotten to a point where I have to stop myself from making notes from the start. Because if I make notes from the start, it kind of messes up my flow because I never get to the end of the passage. Okay, so I would suggest you start with a 5-minute reading. Okay, Now, let's say it takes us an hour to analyze the text. So let's break it down into what we would do in an hour. Okay. So we start with a 5-minute reading. And we're reading as though we are the audience. Then I'm going to, for 5 to 10 minutes, and some people will tell you that this is a waste of time. I promise you that it is not. Okay. I do say this under the belief that you should be writing so much that you are able to write very, very fast. Okay? So I say this with the expectation that you are building your writing speed. Okay? The way to build your writing speed is to set a timer for yourself. Okay? Let's say you set a 20-minute timer and you say, okay, in this 20 minutes, I must write as fast as I can. And you see how long it will take you to fill up a white. Actually, what you can do is you see how long it can take you to fill up a white page, like a line page, right? So that's what you do in your first, to practice a skill of writing fast. Then to continue from that skill of, so after you've seen that, you see how long does it take you. Then you see, okay, well, how long will it take you to write 3 pages? So let's say it takes you 5 minutes to write a full page. How long will it take you to write 3 pages? And so let's say it's taking you 15 minutes. Or let's say it's even taking you 30 minutes. 30 minutes to write 3 pages. I think that's where most people are at. Then what you're going to do is every day you're going to set a 30-minute timer for yourself. And you're going to, in that time, try to write more than 3 full pages. Okay? The reason I say 3 is because that's generally how much you're writing for your text analysis. You're writing like 3 or 4 pages. So we want to make that time shorter. That's how we're going to, in order to do all the things I'm about to tell you, you have to write faster. That's just what needs to happen. Okay. So we've got 5 to 10 minutes. And in this time, you're going to do a stream of consciousness. Okay. So, a stream of consciousness. Who wants to speak up about what a stream of consciousness is? So your stream of consciousness is basically where your consciousness is, think of it like a little river. Okay? Your stream of consciousness is writing as the river flows. The stream, writing as the stream flows. So as the thoughts come to mind, write it down. If you change your thoughts halfway through the sentence, change your thoughts. Carry on writing. It's not about capturing everything. It can be written in sentences, in paragraphs. It can be written in point form, in words. All of these are stream of consciousness. The point is that you need to get the thoughts out of your head. In order to think deeply about the thing, what happens is we are writing and we're like, oh, I mustn't forget this thing. I mustn't forget this thing. And we're so busy focusing on the things we mustn't forget that we forget to write the things. We forget to find new things. We forget to discover more. And so we become so obsessed with that one thing. And so that's why sometimes you'll be writing a thing and you will know that you started wanting to talk about all these things, but you ended up talking about this one thing multiple times because that was probably the thing you were focusing on. So if you spend 5 to 10 minutes doing a stream of consciousness, getting those thoughts out of your head, then you can write knowing, okay, my thoughts are out of my head. I don't have to try and hold on to any of these thoughts. Your next thing, so step 3, so first step is read. Step 2 is stream of consciousness. Step 3 is read through your stream of consciousness and kind of highlight and annotate any thoughts you have. So to annotate is to add to, like add a little note. Okay? To any thoughts you had that you think were actually useful or could move you forward. Okay? And then the things that you think were actually irrelevant, just cross them out with a pencil. Okay. So the irrelevant parts you just cross out, and the parts that can stay, let them stay. Okay. Now, from there, that was 3 steps. 3 steps. Now, step 4, what we're going to do is we've got a bunch of ideas now. Now we're going to deepen our idea. Okay. And we can use whatever framework we want to use. So I have a framework that I have taught you called GASP and ClicksPo. It's actually GRASP and ClicksPo. It started with GASP and ClickPo. Okay, and I actually found this in a Cambridge resource, which I thought was pretty cool, but I actually struggled to find it in other places. And so I made a couple of infographics on it, and I did some teaching on it. But the problem is that people use it as a formula rather than a framework. Okay, so if I were to take this table, this beautiful table I just created, and I were to take the legs and the things that hold the tabletop together and just like plonk it here and put my desk on my computer on top of it, my computer's just going to fall on the floor because it's got no tabletop. Now, your framework is your leg. When you use your framework as your tabletop, you're going to struggle a little bit because your framework does not exist if you're just trying to copy from this one, copy from this place. You're just writing very, very general things. Okay. So so we have our framework. I'm not actually going to open the framework now. I'll teach you on the framework on a different day. Okay. We take our framework and we kind of try to fill things into the framework. So that's why I like GASP and ClicksPo, because each one represents a letter. Okay. So then what I can do is next to each of the things that I've written in my stream of consciousness, I can just put a little letter next to it, and that kind of gives me where it's going. Okay. And then at the same time, I'm going to, so after I've read through my stream of consciousness, so what are we at? We're at step 4 now, hey? So at step 5, I'm going to read through my text again. And I don't have to read like super, super attentively because I've already done that. So now I already know what's going on. So I'm going to read through my text again, and I'm going to annotate, and I'm going to put those little letters next to things. Like, oh, this shows context. This shows language. This is interesting. Okay? And then I'm going to, so step 5? I'm reading through it again, and that's my annotation. Okay? And then step 6, I'm just going to make a couple of extra notes I want to make. And then step 7 is thesis statement and write. The thesis statement, and then I kind of just go with it because now I've done all my thinking. And you're going to see that your text analysis is going to run much faster because you've already done the thinking. You're not thinking as you write. You've already done the thinking. So you're not trying to figure it out as you go. Does that make sense? So let's work out quickly how long each of those is going to take. So we've got 5 minutes for the reading. We've got 5 to 10 minutes for our stream of consciousness. Okay. Then we've got, I think you should do maybe like 5 minutes for your stream of consciousness annotation. Okay. Writing this down. Then let's say, so we've got 5 minutes for our stream of consciousness annotation. Then from there, we're going to do, let's say, 10 minutes for text annotation. So that gives us 5 minutes to read, which we actually worked out was what we needed to read a deep text, do a deep reading. So that gives us 5 minutes to read, 5 minutes to annotate, and we're just putting little letters next to it. Okay. So we've got 10 minutes for our text annotation. Then we've got, what else do we have here? Then I said we must just write some final note. Okay, so our final notes might take about 5 to 7 minutes. And that gives us half an hour left to actually write. Now, this is obviously for your question 2 in your paper 1. Okay. And this is actually how, obviously, different time would be required for different levels of complexity and things like this. But this is a base outline of how to structure your time when you are doing a text analysis. Okay. Okay. So question 1 is, when you're increasing your writing speed, what are we writing about? What should we be analyzing? What are we writing about? Now, this is where people get it wrong. Okay? The reason we write slowly is not because we're thinking slowly. Can you think faster than you write? Okay, so what is holding you back? Your hands. Your hands are holding you back. And so if your hands are holding you back, what you need to do is train your hand muscle. It is not an intellectual exercise, it is a physical exercise. It is occupational therapy to be writing. So I am prescribing it, your English tutor, as an occupational therapy that you can do in writing. So what do you write? What is the fastest thing that happens in your brain? I would say that the fastest thing that happens in our brains is the stream of consciousness. I'm thirsty. I took my pill. Oh, this is sore. My right leg is a little bit sore. And I write like that. And you will see that this will actually improve all your other writing because it's a non-judgmental space. You can couple this with what I call morning pages, which you can go look at, which is called Morning Pages from a book called The Artist's Way or The Writer's Way. It's really, really great. So you can couple it with that. So when you're trying to increase your writing speed, it's not about your spelling. It's not about anything. You are specifically working these hand muscles. Okay. I worked my hand muscles at school by literally just writing absolute rubbish in history exam because I missed history class a lot. But I was good at writing essays, and so I was able to stumble upon the answer a lot of the time. Let's quickly go through GASP and ClickSpo. I'm going to do GRASP and ClickSpo. So our introduction is GRASP. So genre, register, audience, subject, and purpose. And these are the things that need to be the foundation of what you're saying. Everything you say links back to this. Okay? Now, art doesn't fully fit in there because register is as a result of subject and audience. So you'll see that genre, audience, subject, and purpose relates, like they lead to the click post. But I would say that genre and register go very closely together. Then we've got ClickSpo, which is your context. So what is the context of the piece that you're working through? So then we've got L, which is for language. So what linguistic features are there? What linguistic devices do we have? Then we've got I, which is your interactional features. So how does the text interact with the audience and connect with the audience? What is it doing? And all of these things are going to have different elements in. And we're going to, as we talk about the interactional features, we're going to talk about how this reference to the Bible is relevant to this audience, how this reference to the Quran, how this reference to Lord of the Rings is relevant, how, what's his name? There's this Frederick Douglass stands in front of a bunch of white men who have invited him to speak at like a freedom event thing, but like slavery was still happening, and he says, "What have I and my people to do with your freedom?" And so that is relevant. Okay, so that is interactional features where the text is interacting with the audience. Then we've got G, which is graphological features and other things like that. So this is the actual text. So we're looking at italics. We're looking at capitalization could be involved there. We could look at if there are any images attached. We could look at headings, subheadings. Are they underlined? Are there those little stars that separate the different sections, which means that a section has been cut out? Then we've got the S. What is the S for? No idea what the S is for. I'm just going to leave it out for now. And then that's just one that I added, which I just clearly didn't use a lot. And then I've got the P for phonological devices. So how are the sound devices working in the text? And then finally, I've got my overview. So I'm looking at, and now I've looked at all these things. If I look at the whole text, how do all of these things work together to achieve a specific purpose, to communicate a specific subject for a specific audience? And why is it that this was effective? And so that is my my click pose.